and then we're going to do a sound check. And looks like we've got automatic record, and I'm going to go ahead and go live on Facebook. So give us just a minute if anyone pops in. And I'm going to go into, let's go into the Clarity group today. We've got about 4,000 coaches in there. So let's see who's out and about. All right, Leanne, if you'll give me a moment, and I'll properly introduce you.
No problem.
In the meantime, if somebody could give me a thumbs up that we are good to go, that you can hear me okay. Hi, Aaron and Diane and Celia. Hey, you guys. Simone, if you guys could just say yes, everything's good on our end, that would be fantastic. And in the meantime, I'm going to do a real quick post here on Facebook Clarity group. Okay, and I'm tagging Leanne. There we go. All right. Hang on a moment. Oh my gosh, so I'm ready for the cold weather. I don't know about you guys, but living in Tennessee and then being October and it was like 89 last week. Oh my gosh.
Yikes.
Yeah. It's a little bit much. Okay, we're good. Awesome. Okay, you guys. So let me tell you the odds. We have just tried to do this webinar. Have we not? Oh, this is our third attempt. Thank God the third time's the charm.
The stars aligned.
The stars have aligned. And today we have Leanne, and I can never get your last name right. Is it Venier?
Venier, yes, like Venier. Yay.
Yeah, Venier. Leanne Venier is an engineer, inventor, Eastern medicine physician, medical researcher, and so many other things. Her bio is really impressive, you guys. She's known globally as a visionary pioneer in the science of light therapy and the leading authority on the effects of color, photobiomodulation, I have to do that slow, medicine, and flow states for self-healing, optimal brain function, and ultimate happiness in life. She's regularly featured on NBC TV, national radio, global podcasts, consciousness organizations, and often hired to share her research at leading medical organizations. This is impressive. So for 2018, she's been nominated for the Excellence in Alternative Medicine Award at the Smart Health Medical Innovations Conference. And for the past decade,
I won that award.
You won it? Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, 2018 is almost over. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So for the past decade, Leanne has been educating millions and raising global awareness about the scientifically proven physical and psychological benefits of color, sunlight, light therapy, and quantum energy medicine. And many of you guys have heard me talk about her invention, the Red Juvenator, which there's nothing else that beats it out there. I can tell you that right now. The testimonials are unbelievable. You can find more information about that at catalyticcolor.com. I'm going to put that in the chat in just a moment. But Leanne, welcome, and thank you so much for being with us today. I so appreciate it.
Thank you, Carmen. I'm so excited to be here. Finally, yay! We're doing a flow webinar.
Yes, I know. So let's just jump right in and let's talk. Can you define what the flow state is? I've had a lot of people ask me that. I'm like, I'm not even going to attempt to define this. Let's let her talk about it and all her expertise.
Okay, well, I'll kind of explain it in a way that most people can relate to because most people have experienced flow state. Flow state is that optimal state of consciousness where your brain is kind of like working really quickly. Everything is coming at lightning speeds. You're processing information, data. You have no sense of time. So it's very common that people get into flow state when they are doing some activity that they're fully immersed in, that they're enjoying, obviously. Other people that are musicians will get into flow state. They call it the groove when they're a musician. Computer programmers will call it the zone. A lot of other people will call it the zone. Like in-depth, deep meditative states are a type of flow state. I mean, this is basically you're accessing right brain, which is that intuitive, non-linear part of your brain that is the creative aspect, and it doesn't have any sense of time. There's no like data, conversation, that sort of thing. It's all the creativity side. And basically, I like to give a visual of when you're in flow, you feel incredible, first of all, and you can do so much and process so much, and you get all of these insights at the same time. And the other thing is, it's kind of like painting. What's it called? The birth of Adam. Oh my God, I'm totally forgetting the name of this. You know where it's like the finger to Adam and is touching.
Yes.
You're plugged into this universal energy. And that's where you're able to not only transmit information, but download information and get these insights and creative ideas, no matter what you're doing, that you would not normally be able to access. And then as soon as you have them, you have these insights, you're like, oh my God, that is so obvious now that I know it, but I didn't know it 5 minutes ago. So, and then once you know it, then you can move forward with that information. So it's basically a really high-powered way to be able to be much more productive in your life, but also it's extremely healing. So you can actually use flow state as a healing mechanism because it does create all of that amazing healing energy circulating through your body.
Okay, so that brings me to a question then, because that I had all like the movie seat, going across my own mind about when I feel like I'm in that state. And is it even possible? But when I'm training or teaching or I'm doing my webinars, when it's just me and I'm not interviewing, but it's me actually sharing and all of that, is that possible for me to be? Because I feel exactly like that when I'm teaching my students.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like I have moment after moment like that.
Yes, and when you're just, everything kind of is coming effortlessly and going so quickly, but you're able to keep up.
Yes.
And there's also like a speaker flow state, what I call the speaker flow state, when you're on stage or you're talking to an audience or something like that, where you're engaged, and you can actually be doing a recording and still be engaging energetically with your audience, even though they're not there in real time. But when you are engaging with people in real time, when you're speaking in front of an audience, you do get that, like you get that feedback mechanism. So you're getting energy from the audience, you're giving energy back to them, and it increases. So you can actually increase your flow state while you're while you're talking to an audience. Because I've had situations where I'm talking to an audience and they're asking me a bunch of questions, and I listen to the recording afterwards, and I'm like, that was a great answer. I don't know, how did I come up with that? If I tried to logically come up with an answer like that, it probably wouldn't have come so effortlessly.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. That things, it's almost like a downloaded thing coming into my head, and then like I don't even know where it comes from. Yes.
Exactly. Yes. Download, like I said, you're tapped in, so you're kind of taking in that information, you're a channel, and you're putting it out there. It's also the same thing, obviously, for painters, artists, things like that, writers, getting into that flow state where you're channeling that pure creative energy, and you are not really you're not creating it yourself. It feels like it's literally coming through you.
Yeah. And what's funny, now that we're getting into this, the book that just came into my head was that book. Well, first of all, two books. One, Conversations with God by Neil Walsh. Remember that old book from the 1980s or 90s, almost like that. And then The Course in Miracles, which you've probably heard of, A Course of Miracles, and how those two people wrote that entire book, and neither one of them felt like they were even really present for the writing of it. I think that's those are great examples of what that might be like, right?
It's the same thing with my painting process. I mean, for the first several years, I literally felt like when I would get all these, glowing compliments about my paintings, I'd be like, I don't really feel like I created them. I feel like I'm kind of showing up, and they're showing up through me. So it always felt like I'm not doing anything. I'm just kind of like showing up with the paintbrush, and it's all coming through me. So
yeah, very cool.
To get confident for that.
Okay, so tell me now. We touched a little bit on it, but is there a more definitive way for someone who's brand new to this type of thinking or this type of thing, or really wants to start tapping into themselves more, to know that they're actually in that state of flow without actually trying to get there? You know how hard it is to try to meditate? I know there's going to be people listening today, and in the replay that we're sending out, there's going to be like, I'm going to try to get in that state of flow. And I know that might be like riding a horse. The more you pull, the harder they pull back. So
exactly,
how does somebody know this? Yeah.
Well, first of all, when you're in flow state, you know it. So it's not a question of knowing when you're in flow state. It's a question of knowing how to get there. So one of the things that I did several years ago, because I was asked to teach about, color therapy and the healing effects of color and light, the science behind it, for this cancer research center in San Antonio, and that was where I decided to share with them my flow process from my painting process. So I basically reverse engineered my flow process, figured out what exactly it was that I was doing. I didn't come at it from a left brain standpoint. I created these paintings in flow state, and then I figured out exactly how I was doing it. So, and then I was able to teach that to other people for the healing purpose applications, and for getting that optimal state of, being in your life, and it creates happiness and joy and all of that. So basically it's a matter of learning how to tap into flow state. If people already have an exercise or something that allows them to get into flow state, for example, like people who create, or artists or writers, or what you're doing, when you're in flow state, like you just described it.
Yep.
The question is, how do you reproduce that reliably? So through neuroplasticity, if you have an exercise that allows you to get into flow state, the more you practice that, the easier it is to get into flow state. There are certain things which will prevent you from getting into flow state. Being under a lot of stress, for one thing, will kind of like prevent that, not getting enough sleep, having a lot of pain in your body, that those are, blockers to being able to get into flow state. But that's where you can overcome those and still be able to utilize all of that healing energy and overcome your illness, apply it in your business application. So the question isn't really how to know when you're there. It's how to get there. So we can talk about certain things that I know definitively help people to get into flow state more reliably.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's go right there. And I'm taking notes. If you see me looking down, I'm kind of writing things as they come to me, just in case I don't want to forget anything.
No problem.
Yeah.
I have a page on my website called 8 Steps to Flow on my catalyticcolor.com website. So I will, if you go onto my website and you use the search bar and type in the word flow, you'll find that page. Otherwise, maybe, I have a lot of information on my website. It's a learning website. So there's a ton of information on there. It can be hard for people to find things. Okay, so first of all, one of the things that's really important for any exercise or any activity that will get you into flow state is that you have to be excited about it. It has to be something that you enjoy doing, first of all. And then you have to be proficient enough at it that you can get into flow state. If you're still going through the learning curve, you won't be able to get into flow using that activity, which is why so many people struggle when they're meditating, because those first, sometimes first several months for people, sometimes it's only a few weeks, other times it can be several months before they experience that glimmer of, what we call enlightenment, where you feel that amazing sensation of being tapped in and connected. And until you get there, it can be like, oh my God, I have to sit on the cushion for 20 minutes at least and do this thing and not think in my head. And it's very frustrating. So having a practice where you can actually do something that gets you into flow is, I found to be extremely helpful for people. So that's why in my Creative Flow training program, everybody gets into flow state the very first time they do this exercise. But anyway, so going back to the requirements for getting into flow, you have to be enjoying what you're doing. It has to have some level of challenge, but not so much that it creates stress. So you can't be trying to learn something brand new that you've never done before, like playing the piano. I use this analogy on that page. It's like, you may be able to learn chopsticks, but that's not going to get you into flow state. And you're certainly not going to go right into, playing Rachmaninoff after, 1 week of lessons. So having something that allows you to learn it well enough, obviously, like you're familiar with your material, you're already familiar, like you don't have to go through the learning curve of putting on a webinar because you've done it enough times. Right. The very first time that you put on a webinar, you might be like all the technical issues and blah, blah, blah. So you're going to have a harder time initially getting into flow, but you will eventually get there once you start engaging with your audience, right? True. But the first part, you're like, what do I do? Which buttons do I push? So same thing, anytime if somebody has a new job and they're trying to learn a new job, or they're trying to learn some new skill, or learning how to paint, or whatever it is that they're learning, going through that learning curve, getting to the point of level of proficiency where you're familiar enough with the tool is really important. But you also have to have a little bit of a challenge. I'm wondering if I can toggle over and show you a picture.
You can share your screen, yeah.
Let me get my mouse active.
As a reminder, you guys, if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A, and I'll be checking in on that at the end today. So go ahead and plug those in. That in the chat, I will have a harder time. So go to the Q&A box and put them in if you have any questions at all. And then if you're listening on Facebook, I'm going to go out and try to grab those too if there are any questions there. Okay, yep, I can see that. Okay,
can you see it? Sense of excitement, something that matters to you. So the deadline thing, this is what I used to do for myself with my business, where I would create self-imposed, because I'm an entrepreneur and I don't have a boss telling me when my deadlines are. I have to create my own deadlines. I have to stay on my own schedule and do my work, without somebody, hovering over me. So I would create self-imposed deadlines to create that sense of not anxiety, but sense of pressure. I call it kind of like, a horse that has blinders on, you stay like super focused. If you can eliminate all these extraneous, chaotic things that are happening in your environment, you can stay much more focused like a horse with blinders. So you want to be able to eliminate the chatter and stay focused on your task. So one of the things that I would do is to make sure that if I had something that I wanted to get done by a certain time, I would create a self-imposed deadline. So that would create, because I'm really good at procrastinating, as I'm sure a lot of people are. But I have to, it's like, I have to get this done by Friday at 3 p.m., that sort of thing. And then no matter what, I get it done. And that sense of containment where I have this container, like I have to be finished within this timeline, creates that pressure that allows me to stay super focused. I also will eliminate things like on my studio days, for example, when I would choose at the beginning of the week, I'm going to paint 2 days this week and it's going to be Tuesday and Friday, for example. On those studio days, to allow myself the space to get into flow without feeling like distracted by something that's coming, you know, some schedule thing. I would not schedule anything else on that day. So I wouldn't schedule, even in the evening, because sometimes I'd get into flow and I'd work until 10 p.m. Like I would start in the early afternoon and I could be there till 10 o'clock at night with no sense of time, and I would just get so much work done. So I would never schedule something when I knew that I was creating my flow time. Does that make sense?
Yes, I do the same exact thing.
I didn't want it in the back of my mind, like, oh, I have to, like, if I get into flow and then I've got that thing that I have to go to at 7 o'clock. So that's going to block the flow, the creation process. Yes. Yep. Again, here you've got flow in the middle. If you're not interested in the thing that you're doing, or if you've been doing it so long that it no longer excites you, you're not going to get into flow. If you're learning, you're doing something brand new, you've got too much anxiety about it, you're not going to get into flow. So here you can see this kind of perfect. Am I blocking this? If I move
nope, we can see it.
Okay, I can't tell where my little window thing is, where I'm seeing my video. So here you've got all of these different states here. So this is kind of like between arousal and control. You've got that, like I said, the horse with the blinders on, that sense of excitement, but you're focused, and that's when you can create flow. So, if you want to give me some examples, like, okay, like you have something that, like, I just used that example. Give me something else. Like where would you like to get into flow state?
Okay. So the times that whenever I'm teaching, typically with my students, I will not have more than likely anything else on the calendar for the rest of the day, because I don't want my mind going forward. Right. I'm always super present when I'm with my students, and I want to stay that way. So if anything else is later on in the day, that can disrupt my flow and I can get distracted. So I typically really don't have anything scheduled. I'm the same way as you are, like that. I try to leave it open at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're already doing that intuitively. I'm wondering if anybody that's watching has a question about that, because
there's one here. So coaching can feel that way too? ? So when coaching, like if someone is doing, since we're talking to health coaches and, is it possible for them to get into that state of mind before they start with a client session or something like that? If they're comfortable with the coaching process and they're excited about helping their clients.
Yes, exactly. So again, like in your case, you're making sure that you're not scheduling something afterwards where it's like, oh my God, I've got that phone call I have to do after this. So you kind of got that in the back of your mind. Avoid doing that. So when you've got your chunk of time that you're going to be working with your coaching clients, whatever, don't schedule other things immediately after that so that you can stay focused. If you've been doing it a long time, I mean, this is where people that have been doing coaching for a long time or working in the healing arts for a long time, you learn that you are able to, and maybe not right from the very beginning of the call or the session, but within a few minutes, you'll start to tune in to your client. If you're not, that means you're focused on your own stuff. You're self-conscious. So you're like, am I saying the right thing? Am I doing a good job? If you're questioning yourself, you're getting stuck in left brain for one thing, and you're not able to connect with your client or your patient or whoever it is that you're working with. So getting out of your own story and focusing, like literally focusing on tuning in with your client or patient, if you're a healing practitioner, is really important to be able to get into that group flow with them, where then you can pick up additional information before they even tell you, and you're able to hear the words that aren't said. So they may say something to you that isn't really what the problem is, but you can hear, exactly what the problem is because you just got that download of information directly from them. Does that resonate?
Oh my gosh, like so glad you said this. And I'm so glad that they brought this up in the chat there, because that's how that is so true. When I first started my coaching career, and I know we have new people on and we have seasoned coaches as well. I remember that feeling of wondering, am I saying the right thing? Am I being attentive enough? Am I this? And then like, you know, hour and 15, 20 minutes later going, oh my gosh, like where was I in that? And so I quickly learned, you know, how to get present. And I called it getting present, but it's the same kind of thing, I think, as when you're in that flow state.
When you're in flow, you are 100% present, because like I said, there's no sense of time. There's no sense of thinking about what you're doing, you know, what I'm going to make for dinner, or, you know, what I'm doing this evening or whatever. You're right in this moment. If you're in flow, you are exactly in this moment. That's why, you know, when people are meditating, the ultimate goal is to be here right now. Focus on the breath. There are different tools to help you to be present in this moment because the natural tendency for people is to have these thoughts that are, oh, la, 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 you know, okay, I'm breathing. Oh, what did Mary Ann say to me yesterday? And blah, 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 you know, and like, then you go off on this whole storyline, and then, oh, wait, okay, breathe. I'm supposed to be breathing, count 1, 2, 3. And then, you know, you know, so that being in flow is being 100% present.
Yeah. And Karen's asking here, what about writing, like for newsletters or books or something like that, if you're just trying to learn how to get into this state of mind?
Okay, well, you are already a proficient writer, I'm assuming, so you know how to write.
Well, it's possible that many of these people are just getting started too with their blogs and things like that, getting started, or, you know, trying to figure out how to begin to write, really.
Okay, well, one of the most important things for any kind of creative process, writing, you know, creating, painting, whatever, you have to schedule in the time. So you can't just sit and wait for inspiration to hit you over the head, because this is kind of a myth that people think, oh, artists, you just sit around and then all of a sudden, oh, I'm so inspired, I'm going to go paint in my studio now. No, it doesn't work that way. You create the space so that you can allow flow to happen, but you have to create the space. So you hear this all the time from writers. They will have a very structured, ritual where they, you know, like their writing time, for example, is first thing in the morning. They get up, they make their coffee, they have their tea, whatever, and then they sit down. And it's really, there's this expression, you know, butt in chair or ass in chair, if you want to be a little bit. Anyway, like that's how do you become a good writer? Because you sit down in the chair and you write. You don't just, you know, like read like tons of articles about writing. That isn't going to help you be a good writer. No. You know, reading about how to paint isn't going to help you be a good painter. You have to actually do the practice. So as far as writing blog articles, you know, start off by choosing topics that you're excited about writing about. You know, a lot of times people write blog articles because they're doing these paid affiliate things where they're writing about something because somebody's paying them to write an article or to review their product or something like that. And maybe they're not excited about it. You're not going to be excited about the money that you're going to make. It's not enough to get you into flow state. You have to be excited about the material. So choose things that you're literally most interested in. If you think I'm going to write a blog, I'm going to create a blog because this is a trending topic right now, and I'm going to do a blog about this, but I really don't care about the topic, but I'm going to do, and you see this happen all the time. It's like, why aren't you writing about what you're excited about? You know, because then everything is effortless. When you do what you're really passionate about doing, instead of thinking about, I can make more money if I focus on this, or if I push these products to, you know, whatever, anything that you want to be able to get into flow state, you have to be excited about it. So choose something that you want to talk to people about. And then you're excited to get up and write an article about it. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that leads us into the question of, which kind of into this conversation about how does this increase creativity and productivity to be in flow state? And I'm really glad, like, you're hitting on a bunch of stuff right now that these are things that I talk to my coaches about. And the fact that you're saying, like, you know, don't write about the trendy things that are out there. Don't be like everyone else. What's inside of us that needs to come out is really what we should be talking about, writing about, teaching, and educating on, is what do we feel excited about? And I think so many coaches don't do that. They go, nope, everyone's talking about thyroid. That's what I'm going to write about today. Or everyone's talking about leaky gut, so I need to educate. If you talk, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but if you talk about and write about the things that you're passionate about, those people looking for those things will come to you, and you're going to have business regardless of what's
Exactly.
going on around you, right?
Yes, and that's what I was talking about, that, the finger to God thing, that being connected with that universal energy, because when you're in flow, you're putting out that energy, that because thoughts are energy and you're transmitting them. Sorry, I keep trying to turn my phone down. It's like,
That's okay. Go ahead.
Moment. My phone is not being in flow with me. Here, audio off. I should have done this before and I forgot. There. Okay, now let's stop talking. Okay, so and now I lost my train of thought. Getting into, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to help you remember, but go ahead.
Well, go ahead and help me remember.
We were just talking about that passion and that the idea of staying with what feels right to us and what's true to us, and
Yes.
and unfortunately getting off track and doing what other people think we should be doing keeps us from getting in that state.
Yeah, and but again, choosing the things that you're excited about writing, because people, what I was going to say is that people often don't give themselves credit for having something to say that's valid. You actually have a lot to say, and the most beneficial things that you have to say are going to come from your own experience. Yes. So, thinking that you're going to coach people about stuff that you haven't experienced is a little bit like disconnected. So what have you gone through in your own life, that you can share what you've learned with other people? So that's part of it, because I'm excited about this. I went through all kinds of health issues of my own and a lot of stress and trauma in my early childhood. And I came through that and became a much stronger person for it. So I can speak to that kind of stuff. I can help people with those exact things because I remember what it was like to be going through them. And I can, connect with people that way because I can relate to them. But if I'm talking to somebody about, I don't know, what's something that I have no experience with? I actually have a lot of experience. I've done a lot of different things. I'm trying to think, what is something that I've actually never.
Like for me, it would be like, I like to run, but I have no interest in teaching people how to run, no interest in talking about running or strides or anything like that. I like to do it, but it's not something I want to talk about.
And you're not, exactly. So that's a good example, because it's like, there are things that we may enjoy doing for ourselves, but we're not interested. Like I've had a lot of people that have asked me to teach them how to paint. I have no interest in teaching people how to paint. I love teaching people how to get into flow state using simple drawing exercises in color, but I don't, I'm not interested in teaching how to mix paint and stuff like that. There are a gazillion art teachers out there that can do that. You can get on YouTube and learn all of that. So I'm not excited about that. That's a very good analogy. So even though you have a skill set, you may not be excited about sharing it with people. So that's another thing. Not just, and again, this comes back to where people so often try to make decisions based on what's going to make me money, like I have to do something that's trending or popular or whatever and again, they don't give themselves credit for having something to say that's valid. And we all do. We all have these experiences that are valuable, and there are people out there that can benefit from what you have to teach them. You don't have to try to teach what everybody else is teaching. If you're not excited about learning about something, don't waste your time learning that stuff. Focus on the things that you're really excited about. It's that problem where people feel so much pressure to make a lot of money, so they make decisions based on thinking that they're going to make a lot of money. And I went through that myself, where it was like I was talked into, well, I accept responsibility. I'm the one who ultimately made the decision. I wanted to be an engineer. I really wanted to be an astronaut. But my father said, well, if you study mechanical engineering instead of astronautical engineering, you will have a lot more opportunity to get a job wherever you want. Except the problem was, even though I loved a lot of my classes in mechanical engineering, working in the engineering realm when I worked at Lockheed designing submarines, that was not exciting for me. I really didn't like it at all. I didn't like that corporate environment. So I was actually getting sick all the time because I was doing something that wasn't fulfilling me. And I continued to do it because I felt like I had these expectations that were placed upon me because, I spent all this time and money getting this engineering degree. And now what am I going to do? Just throw it out the window, which I ultimately did do because it was making me sick and miserable. So I didn't really throw out the education and training. I still use that every day, but I'm not working in that environment, and I'm not, I'm choosing to do things that make me feel alive and thriving, and created a whole business around doing the things that I'm just passionate about doing. I never planned to teach medical doctors and, millions of people around the world about the science behind the healing effects of color and light and validating that as a viable healing modality. So now you hear about light therapy everywhere because I'm the one that connected all the dots and brought it to light, basically, and shared this with people. I didn't plan on doing that. All I did was make sure that I was following my intuition every step of the way and following what it was that I was passionate about most doing. So I knew I wasn't passionate about engineering. I decided to leave engineering. I moved to Italy. I was passionate about moving to Italy. I lived in Italy for 7 years. I spent 7 years studying all these alternative healing modalities. I was excited about learning those. It also helped me to learn the language much more quickly because I was motivated to learn because I wanted to read all of these things that were written in Italian. So I learned all of these things, continued to study, went back to the States for acupuncture and Zen Shiatsu, then had a healing practice. So all of these things that I was doing, it's like you think, well, now you've left that behind and now you've left that behind. But I never left anything behind because it was all a part of the whole. And then when I stopped doing the one-on-one healing work because that wasn't exciting to me anymore, I felt like I just kept repeating the same things over and over again. And I wanted to be able to share all of the things that I learned and studied with a much larger audience. But I didn't plan to do that either. I just kind of thought this is really ineffective to do the one-on-one thing. But I think it's really valuable when people are going through that. You learn so much from doing the one-on-one thing. But then maybe you get to a point where, like you don't want to do the one-on-one thing anymore. Or maybe you do, but only part of your time. And then the rest of the time you want to speak to thousands of people at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
So leaving that each time, it was okay. I made it okay for me to be, okay, I can stop doing the one-on-one healing work. But I didn't decide to stop doing the one-on-one healing work. I decided to take a beginner painting class so I could get into flow state because I was craving that. I felt like I'd been working too much and doing too much left brain stuff, and I wasn't taking care of myself. This is another thing that coaches, healing practitioners, we often neglect our own needs because we're so focused on trying to help all these other people that we often don't take care of our own selves. So I use the analogy of, when they talk about on the plane, if the plane's crashing, you need to put your oxygen mask on first, and then you can help other people. But if you don't take care of yourself first, you're not going to be around to be helping other people. You're going to get sick and depleted and drained of energy. So that was my wake-up call where it's like, okay, I need to do something creative for myself to get into flow. So I took a beginner painting class, and that was where immediately I started getting all of this attention for the paintings that I was creating at home, my abstract paintings that I was creating in flow state. And my art career took off. I just made a decision after that because my intuition said, now it's time to be a professional artist. Stop doing the one-on-one healing work and become a professional artist. And I did. And it just took off immediately. I started getting contacted by international curators. Literally 2 months within putting up my very first website, I started getting contacted by journalists in other countries and decor magazines to be the featured artist. It was just bizarre. But this, again, is what I'm talking about. When you're in flow, you are broadcasting. It's like you've got this giant radio antenna and you're putting your energy out there into the world, and people that want your energy and your information and the stuff that you're sharing find you. I literally never did anything to put my work out there. I put up a website, like a basic website, and people started finding me. I didn't try to. It's the same thing as soon as I started teaching about the stuff about color and light, which came specifically from people having responses to the colors in my paintings. And then they would say things like, oh my God, I can't stop staring at your red paintings or your blue paintings or whatever color it was. And because I'd connected these dots between all of these different healing systems, ancient healing modalities, I would tell them, if you're really drawn to that color, you might have this going on in your body and this going on in your life. And every time they'd be like, oh my God, that's exactly what's going on in my body, in my life. How do you know? And that's where I would say, because we crave color like we crave nutrients. So that's why you can use color as a catalyst for getting into flow. So that's one of the things that I recommend to people. It's like, bring color into your environment and choose the colors that you're feeling most drawn to have surrounding you at any time. And they may change from day to day. You may be craving certain colors for a few weeks, a few months. It can change depending on what's going on in your life and in your body, because we crave color just like we crave nutrients. Another thing that's really, really valuable is to get out under sunlight, because you get all of those healing colors when you are under sunlight. So you can get, bathed in all of these healing energies under sunlight, but not in the middle of a city. So going for a walk in the middle of a city is okay. You're going to get sunlight, but it's much, much more effective if you go out into nature and you're surrounded by trees or water or that sort of thing. So even if you get, a little bit outside and you're in some woods, getting connected to that energy that's in nature is so much more valuable than just going. It's good to get sunlight and go for a walk, but it's much better if you can do it surrounded by the nature, trees, because that's where you get that life force energy, that chi, prana. That's what people crave when they get really drained and depleted. You can get into flow state just going for a walk in nature. So because you're basically soaking in all of that healing energy and going into nature, not bringing music with you, but tuning in with the actual surroundings, not going with a friend and chit-chatting the whole time, because you're not going to get into flow while you're chatting. So going in, you can use that as a meditation. And again, if you have somewhere that you can do that and get into flow on a regular basis, going for a walk, not to mention it's extremely effective if you're feeling really scattered and you're not like, I've got so much to do. And I speak from experience too, because when I would work a lot and I would, I've got a deadline, I've got some, medical center presentation that I'm giving, and I want to bring in all the latest research. I want to make a new PowerPoint every single time. I do that because I'm crazy, but anyway, so working really long hours because I'm loving what I'm doing, but then it's like sometimes you have to get off the computer and allow yourself that time to recharge. And I wasn't doing that. So then when I would start feeling stressed and depleted, I'd be like, okay, I have to take my own advice and get out and do, go for a walk under the sun. So I would do that, go into nature, go for a walk. Oh my God, 15 minutes and I'm completely reset. I'm not stressed out and anymore. I'm like, oh, I love everybody. I love the world.
I'm that way too. Well, in the summertime, I go out and lay in a chair for about 10 minutes or so, just laying in the chair with some meditation music on or just silence. Mm-hmm. But let's dial this in for just a second, because something you said a little while ago made me want to ask this question. Mm-hmm. And now we know a lot about how to get into flow state, but the things that may block flow besides stress or whatever, one of the things that popped into my head when you were talking, and this kind of really pertains to what I believe and how I try to teach my coaches about using their story and mm-hmm. not being anyone but who they are. So be yourself, everyone else is taken is my favorite quote by Oscar Wilde, always. Yeah. But don't you believe, or do you believe, or is this true? Can shame around our story block mm-hmm. the state of flow when working with other people? So in other words, this is let me put this out there. A lot of coaches don't want to tell people that they've had health problems or marital problems or any problems at all. They think that everyone should think that they're perfectly healthy and they have no problems, because why would someone want to hire me if I'm still dealing with this problem?
Right.
That, to me, is a feeling of shame or guilt or something that can block that relationship or that flow of energy between you and another client, which could be something inhibiting the best relationship you could have with them. Do you believe that to be true?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's where, we need to feel comfortable, because I frame it in a way that everything that you've experienced has been a learning opportunity to take you to where you are now. And you're not done. You're not finished learning. You're going to have other challenges, but the way that you deal with those challenges and the way that you've learned to deal with those challenges is extremely valuable experience. So you can't just, say, oh, do this, do that. It's so much more powerful when somebody tells you something and they also say, I went through this myself. Yes. So I know what I'm talking about. I know how you're feeling. Because you see people all the time that are they frame themselves as experts in whatever, and it's just because they read a few articles and because it's trending, and now I'm going to be an expert on this. I see lots of light therapy experts out there, by the way. Yeah. Anyway, so if you don't have, the background to be talking about something, people are not going to connect with you. They're not stupid. Plus, there's this energetic thing. When you're talking superficially about something because you think I should talk about this or I should teach about this, and you don't have that passion, that feeling, that energy from inside you that comes from you having lived through that, people feel it. It's very hollow. That's why people can tell when they're being sold to. They feel it. It's like, I don't feel like this is authentic. I feel like they want me to buy something. I don't feel like they really care about me. I feel like they're trying to make me think that they care about me, but they're really just trying to sell me stuff. And people feel that. And we're all capable of that. When you have that authenticity that comes from you having lived through an experience and you want to help people and you want to share your experience with others, knowing that that experience that you may be ashamed of, it's like, it's really valuable. And you can help so many people by sharing that. That's why I always talk about it. It's like, oh my God, I got sick. I used to be like super healthy. Now I'm healthy again. But I went through that period. I had to learn through opposites. I had to learn, this is what makes me feel really, really crappy and like I'm dying and like it's sucking the life force energy out of me. And this is what it feels like to feel amazing. So am I going to do that because they're paying me a big paycheck? Or am I going to do this and then get really excited about doing that and then make way more money doing this because I'm in flow and I'm creating that, and then I'm creating abundance in my life from this, which is like, the amount of money here, which back then you think that's a lot of money, but when you're up here and you're making way more money because you're doing what you love doing, that's very gratifying in itself. But yes, acknowledging that your experiences and what you've lived through are valuable, not just to you, but to other people. I think that allows people to kind of give themselves permission to share that. And even if people are uncomfortable, they can try little experiments, talk about, one specific thing that happened to you with your client and see how they react to that, see how they respond, because you will see when people are, connecting, you feel that energy connection open up. And there's a different look in their eyes because they go from being like, what are you trying to sell me, to, oh my God, yes, I can totally relate. Oh, tell me more. They get excited. So, and you have that connection. And then again, you feed off of each other, that energy, and it grows. So you can, I don't really know how else to describe that other than understanding that what you've lived through and the challenges that you have lived through and have overcome and are still overcoming in many cases, it's like it's all a learning process, right? So the things that I learned many years ago, I learned those. Sometimes you get to repeat the lessons because, you forgot that lesson. Let me give you another opportunity to learn it again, But realizing that, it's like nobody's perfect. And if you, even gurus, people that, like Gandhi and who are some other people? Mother Teresa. I mean, they had challenges in their life too. They didn't just go like overnight to being these benevolent people. So the things that you learn and you live through and you overcome are very valuable lessons. And you should be proud of them because they've made you the person that you are today. It's not a matter of like trying to pretend that you are this, I came out of my mother's womb and I was perfect.
Yeah.
Right.
That way, regardless of everything that happened to me. But, good. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the science of this. So you mentioned neuroplasticity earlier. I would venture a guess that maybe 75% of the coaches know what neuroplasticity is. Can you define that for us and then talk about how we can train our brain to get into flow using that? Yes.
Okay. So neuroplasticity is a matter of anytime you exercise a part of your brain, basically you do an exercise over and over again. Let's talk about, I'm trying to think what most people have an experience. I can't talk about like playing a musical instrument because not everybody's done that. Driving a car. Okay. So when you first start driving a car, you have to remember all this stuff. It's like, okay, I need to, like if it's an automatic, it's a lot easier, obviously. If it's stick shift, you have to remember when you put the clutch in and, take your foot off the brake and then not stall the car. But anyway, whatever it is, if you're in an automatic, it's the same thing, but a little fewer steps that you have to learn. But anyway, it's not an automatic process when you first start learning. It's like you have to do a lot of data processing, a lot of like, okay, look, watch the mirror. It's like, how do I not have an accident with all this stuff going on? But then as you practice, your brain starts creating these, pathways that you are able to do those activities much more easily. And it becomes automatic. And then you get to a point where you get in your car and you end up where you're supposed to be at your office or wherever it is. And you like, oh, I don't even remember driving. That, by the way, is not being present if you don't remember driving there. But anyway, so yeah, neuroplasticity is a matter of doing something repeatedly, and then it becomes easier and easier for your brain to do that activity. So flow, Harvard did a research study a number of years ago on people that had never done any kind of mindfulness activity before, whether it was meditation or yoga or anything like that. So basically they didn't know how to do any of those activities, and they followed them for, I'm trying to remember, was it 8? It was only 8 weeks, and they did MRI scans of their brain before, during, and after, and they found that different areas of the brain, like the areas of the brain that were related to stress and anxiety, actually got smaller, and the areas that were related to empathy and learning and that sort of thing literally got bigger from doing these exercises that were starting to get them into flow state. So that's how fast you can literally change even the structure, the gray matter of your brain. It doesn't take that long. So, and I think most people can relate to that. Anytime you learn something new, you know, whether you're learning a new program on the computer, and at first you're like, oh, I have to watch videos and I have to figure out, blah, blah, blah. And then you do it a few times and then it becomes much easier. You don't have to go through that learning curve. So that's neuroplasticity, essentially.
Right.
Athletes, you know, when they're first learning a sport, you start doing it repeatedly and then it becomes automatic. And you can actually, they've proven scientifically that you can exercise, you can do athletic exercises just by imagining doing them, and your body can't differentiate between if you're really doing the exercise or you're just visualizing it. So you can actually increase the neuroplasticity around that exercise by visualizing that activity. So again, obviously you can apply that into any number of things.
Yeah, yeah, and when I teach a little bit about neuroplasticity, I always talk about the cart and the horse. The farmer goes out to the field using the same path every day. The grooves get very deep from the wheels, and then one day he goes down a new path, and everything's kind of crazy, and the horses are like, "What are we doing here?" And the wheels are like, right. "What's happening?" But eventually, that groove will get deeper as he continues to use that pathway as well. Similar, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's that first time down the road that it feels a little bit bumpy and it's not familiar, and then it becomes more and more familiar. So, yeah. But again, and this is where people can get stuck in ruts, literally, because they're afraid to try something new. It's like, well, I know this path. It's really easy. It's automatic. I'm really bored with it, but you know, I get my paycheck or whatever it is. But it's boring and you're not getting into flow because you're not excited about it anymore. So it's like having that initiative to be able to give yourself permission to, here, try something new. And, you know, there are little ways that people can do that without making huge lifetime commitments, by doing little exercises. You know, go to a store and, you know, like an art store, for example. I'll tell people, it's like, this is a really good exercise. Go to an art store, buy some, you know, drawing supplies or whatever, and start creating, get color, get some pastels, start creating something just for fun. And don't worry about, you know, like I need to show this to somebody. It needs to be a great work of art. You can be doodling, but having those things, giving yourself permission to kind of get back into that childlike state is really valuable, because we get so, you know, controlled and stuck in these ways, and everything becomes rigid and dogmatic, and I have to do it this way. You get that really blocks creativity and blocks flow.
I agree. And, you know, I recently started doing got back into kind of climbing and bouldering. Just, you know, bouldering using no ropes and just kind of free climbing and learning how to do that again. And I have to tell you, the first time I looked at the wall and I was standing there and I had my chalk bag and I was looking at it and I thought, okay, I never would have done this before. Just come up to this wall with all these people hanging from things and just jump in. And I thought, why wouldn't I though? But why wouldn't I do that? And so I just went ahead and did it. And now I've gone a couple times a week and I'm beginning to get more skilled, but I'm excited about it. But it's one of the most focused places I've ever been. I'm very focused. I'm excited, and I feel like I'm in a place where everything feels just right. So that's possible that I'm in the flow state when I'm doing that as well. But how would I have done that if I hadn't just jumped in and tried, right?
Well, and a lot of times people get self-conscious because they don't want to look stupid, or they don't want to look like they don't know what they're doing, or things like that. So they'll prevent themselves from trying new things, and that obviously prevents all kinds of, you know, amazing experiences you can have. And it may have been easier for you because you did it in the past, right? You did that activity.
I didn't boulder, but I did climb. I'd been in a harness about 20 years ago, kind of thing.
Yeah.
A little bit of
that's about how long it's been for me too.
But wow, like it really, I feel like it was a place that had been missing for me. And now that I'm in it, when I'm there, I really just feel focused and happy and excited and all of those things. So much of what you've said has spoken to a lot of new things that I've done in my life for the past few months. So I'm excited to see that I might be tapping into that. So let's lead into this question by Diane. Can you explain what it feels like? Kind of an explanation for what to be expecting about the feelings. We've talked a lot about, you know, the pieces around it, you know, how to not this and how to do this, but what does it feel like inside of your body?
It feels like you have this huge amount of limitless energy coursing through your body, and you feel ecstatic. It's like this ecstatic, blissed out feeling, like you just feel amazing. Do you relate to that, where you just feel like I love what I'm doing right now. You feel supercharged, and your brain, if you're doing any kind of, because again, you can train your brain to be able to get there doing these creative activities or doing sporting activities or whatever it is that you want, but then you can take that experience and apply it into your work. So that was what I discovered spontaneously years ago when I was creating these PowerPoint presentations. Because I was painting twice a week and getting into flow on a regular basis, I had already trained my brain to be able to get into flow. And then I'm doing all of this reading, literally tens of thousands of research studies. I'm not exaggerating with that number. But being able to read and assimilate and take in all this information and process it and then connect dots, and like I'm seeing all of these connections between these research studies that are happening all around the world, and these researchers don't know what this one's doing, but I'm connecting these dots. So it's like, and I'm like, oh, this is a very left brain activity, reading scientific data, medical research studies, and still being in flow, and then being able to create my PowerPoint presentations while I'm in flow and pulling all this information together. So all that to say that you can be doing a left brain activity and be doing it in flow state. But the common denominator is that feeling that you feel like you have no sense of time, and you just have all this energy, and you can work and work and work and work and work and keep going and going. And that's where I would be like, it'd be midnight, and I'd finally be, okay, I have to get off the computer because I know I'm going to be physically depleting myself if I don't get enough sleep. So that was where I first made the rule for me. I'm off all electronics by 10 p.m. No matter if I'm in flow and I'm getting a lot of work done, it's like I have a hard shut-off time of 10 o'clock. So I don't typically work that late anymore because I don't really need to be. I don't have anything that, deadline driven that I need to be working all those hours. So I have a much freer schedule now. When I needed to, I had to create that hard deadline for myself. And still I have, no more replying to emails, even though I'm tempted to reply to it. Oh, I've just got this one more email and I can nope, has to wait till tomorrow.
So is it almost like a kind of like a really lengthy, more even keeled dopamine hit where you're feeling joy and you're feeling energy and you're feeling kind of, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes people talk about the runner's high. Maybe the runner's high is very similar to the flow state where you are just,
That's another one. Yeah. Runner's high, the zone, the groove, there's a bunch of different names for it. Yes. And it's not like you get these peaks. It's this sustainable, but like here, amazing energy, and you don't get tired. You don't and the ideas are just, coming and effortless. It feels effortless. It feels amazing. And like I said, most people have had that experience, everybody has had that experience, for sure. And many people may not have had it for many years. And maybe it's like, since they were a child that they haven't been to flow state, but everybody has had that experience. So again, going into nature is a really effective way of starting to nurture that. If you don't have anything, that allows you to, practice that and get into flow state, just going for a walk in nature. And walking, in addition to being in nature, has a lot of value as well, because it's that whole thing. Like when I teach in my creative flow training programs, there's a kinesthetic element, there's the visual, there's auditory, there's color, and because you're tapping into all these parts of your brain, as opposed to just which is why a lot of times when people are meditating, sitting on a cushion is really hard for them to do, because you're trying to do just that one thing, and people then will get really sleepy and fall asleep while they're trying to meditate. And that's not getting into flow. That's like going to sleep. So having that movement together with the connecting with that energy can be really valuable. And again, no conversation, no listening to music. You can listen to classical music, but I tell people, like, when you're going into nature, it's really better to not even listen to music when you're in nature, because just tune in with the sounds of nature, because it has its own music. If you're doing something that you need to be in flow, that you're working, if you're just learning, it's much better to have music with no lyrics, because the lyrics pull you into left brain. Language pulls you into left brain.
Yeah, so, that's funny you say that. I listen to, I have these stations on Pandora, like Hypnotic State and, you know, chill out music and chill out radio that I always play when I'm creating and writing and I'm doing, you know, curriculum work. But then, you know, I always have words when I'm cooking or doing things I don't have to think about. And I'm always listening to music. It's, you know, unless I'm just sitting outside. But it's funny that you say that, because when I turn something on, if I'm writing and something has a lyric, I can't even. I'm automatically like, I'm completely disrupted. I have to go in and change that. Yeah. So talk about it as our birthright then. Tell us why is the flow state our birthright? What does that mean when you say that?
Okay, so I can't remember how many years ago it was. Somebody did this research study, and he wanted to see what would happen when people were no longer having their circadian rhythm disrupted by artificial lighting. So he basically took a group of people and he had them, you know, basically live with the cycles of sunlight, daylight, and nighttime. So when it was nighttime, there was no electronics, no electrical lighting, anything like that. So basically, like when you go camping, you can actually reset your whole circadian rhythm just like with 3 days of camping and being, you know, following the cycles of nature. So he wanted to see what would happen if these people were able to not be influenced by, you know, artificial lighting. So it was the first 3 weeks, they basically just caught up with a lot of sleep. They were really sleep deprived. So they did a lot of catching up. And then after the 3rd week, they all started having this rhythm of where they would sleep for 4 hours, and then they would wake up and they would be in this flow state where they would be downloading all these ideas, and you're kind of in this blissed out state, but in the middle of the night, they'd wake up and they'd have like all these ideas and downloads. And I've talked to other entrepreneurs that actually do this on a regular basis. That's when they wake up, they get these brilliant ideas. Authors, you know, writers, you've probably heard about a lot of famous writers that do this. They get the download. It's like, oh my God, I got the whole story and it just came to me in the middle of the night. And then, you know, they'd stay awake for an hour or so, and then they'd go back to sleep for another 4 hours. And then that was what would happen every single night. So when we are not, you know, disrupted, we don't have our circadian rhythm disrupted by artificial lighting, we actually naturally go back into this every night having flow state. So, and I talk about it like, it's basically, you know, do you remember when, you know, they don't do this anymore, but the computer, you had to actually go in and defrag your hard drive. You had to go in and every few months you had to like say, okay, defrag the hard drive, and you could actually see how it was like taking all these chunks of data that had gotten all, you know, separated and segmented, and it would like reorganize it. It's kind of like taking the books on your bookshelf and organizing them in a nice way, so now they look all nice. You've got the bigger ones here and the smaller ones here, or however, you know, organizing your kitchen, whatever it is. But getting rid of all that clutter and putting things back so the information is in this organized format, that's like basically what getting into flow is doing in your brain. And having deep sleep is another thing, where getting into deep sleep is your brain defrag time. So it reorganizes the information that you learned from the day. It puts it into long-term memory so that you're able to learn and remember that stuff the next day and then continuing. So if you're not having the right sleep patterns, you're not able to, your brain doesn't have its nightly defrag time, let alone, you know, going into this flow state time.
So, I love that. I love the way you explain that.
Yeah, sleep is really important. And then, like I said, having that nightly defrag in your brain, because the more you get, you know, segmented, like your computer, it gets bogged down. You would just get slower and slower. My computer won't work at all anymore. Time to defrag the hard drive. Now your Windows 10 will take over for you and do it without you knowing about it. But anyway, yeah, so it's really important to have that. And that's why when people don't, they get, you know, they they start having, they can't remember things anymore, and their brain isn't working, and they have all this brain fog, and they can't, process information, and they feel like distracted and agitated and anxious all the time. And that's one of the things that with people with the Rejuvenator, I mean, they start doing their facial treatments and they're like, oh my God, I'm like, my brain is working. I'm getting all this clarity because they're treating, they're opening up all these blocked energy channels that have gotten blocked and defragging their brain at the same time. So it helps on all these levels, but and obviously helps with sleep too. So getting all of that and understanding that this is really something that is part of our birthright, like I said, getting into that right brain state is something that we all need for thriving. And so, our modern society really thrives on pushing people into that left brain, analytical and spreadsheets and all of that stuff. And instead of tune in with your intuition and following your gut instinct, that's right brain. And people, our society doesn't encourage that. It wants people to analyze, bottom line and focus on money and all this stuff instead of following your path and purpose in life, and what are you passionate about. And again, that ties in with bloggers that come in, it's like, oh, what should I write about? Don't ever say what should I do. What do I want to do? What am I excited about doing? Because that's self-nurturing again. So that's going to create flow because you're excited, you've got that passion, and you've got that container. Now, I know sometimes it can be really hard for people to narrow down what it is that they want to work on. I know, what are you excited about right now? What are you passionate about learning about right now? In the process of researching that, you can be writing something and helping other people by you saying, oh, I'm really excited about this topic. And guess what I just learned, and I found this book and blah, blah, blah. And instead of focusing on who's going to pay me to write an article for them. Yeah. Boring, unless you're excited about it.
Yeah, I've got a new project on the horizon on a personal and business level that it's been really hard for me to even hold back on it, but I need to get all the pieces in place, but I'm really excited about it. And so it is it's going to be a creative journey, but it's also going to be a vulnerability thing as well. So figuring out how to share that part of my life while also expanding my reach and helping other people is where I am right now. I'm right in the middle of that creative process. And when I feel like thinking about, I can feel myself getting into that flow.
Yeah.
I mean, it just starts to happen without even, it's effortless. Like you said, it just kind of takes over. So Karen's asking real quick, and if I can ask this real quick, she said, you just mentioned language is left brain. I'm curious how writing is left brain versus right brain. Is it both due to the language aspect and the writing of words?
Okay, what?
Yeah, it says you just mentioned.
I think I kind of understand the question, but okay. So how is it when you're writing, if that's left brain? Because
how writing is left brain versus right brain. Karen's saying, is writing both left and right brain? There you go.
Well, yes, because you're using language, but you can be tapping into flow state and language is coming through you, and you're not creating those words. So it's not like you're in a left brain. Left brain, think of it as being in a more controlled state where you're processing data and you're analyzing. So for example, the difference in writing in flow versus writing in non-flow would be like, okay, I'm writing this sentence and it, oh, that was a great sentence. Oh, but wait, I have to put a comma here and a period. Oh, and I spelled that word wrong. And you start self-editing in the middle, you're going to pull yourself out of flow. So that's going into that linear logical left brain, trying to control the process and trying to self-edit while you're creating something. Just don't worry about editing. Don't worry, just let the words come. And this is a really good exercise just to start writing sometimes when people that you just start writing, I don't know what to write about. I'm going to write, the sky is blue, blah, blah, blah. And you just start writing random, gibberish just to get the writing, prime the pump, essentially. So you're not trying to self-edit and you're not controlling the language. You're letting language come through you. But yeah, that's a good question because you think it's not, when I'm talking about left brain being connected with language and words, it's like if you're speaking, you're dialoguing with somebody, that's pulling you into left brain. If you're listening to words with lyrics that now you're trying to hear the words, what did she just say? Oh yeah, and that's pulling you into left brain because it's that analytical mode. You can be creating words in right brain though, and having words coming through you. Mm-hmm. So that's where, fiction writers will say, once they start writing, the characters take on a life of their own and the book writes itself. They don't often know where the story is going. It just kind of evolves as they're writing. So, and you may have an idea at first of how you want the story to go, but then the story is like, nope, we're not doing that. We're doing this, and it will create. And it's the same thing for writing essays and that sort of thing, and blog articles.
Yeah, it's one of the things when I teach my coaches and students how to do a free consultation with someone that they don't know, do that 15 minutes. I always say, ask them just to free speak with no judgment, no agenda. Just tell their story without thinking too hard about it, and hear what they have to say. It helps you to see what the real challenges is. And you said something earlier about how people think it's one thing, but it's really another. And when we're able to reach in and tap into that with that client, it's because we are present. You were talking about something like that. And that's exactly how it feels for me. When we do like mentorship groups and things like that, I don't even use a real form, because I always say the minute we get started talking and you tell me that your challenge is marketing, I can see your challenge is not marketing. It's your self-worth or your self-confidence or whatever.
Exactly.
It automatically comes to me. So, so I love that. I love that. So, and we're up on the hour here. It's 1:06. So I just want to make sure that everybody is checking the chat real quick to grab. Diane put the link in here to the 8 Steps to Flow link to your website, Catalytic Color. And let me just encourage you guys to look into everything she offers out there and look at the Rejuvenator. My mom, me, Freddie, like we live with it. Like mine sits next to my bed. I literally, if I have worked out extra hard and I've done abs or I've done that's where it goes. Every night when I'm just kind of taking my time down, I use that thing every night. And it's like increased recovery time. And since you told me today, for those of you who don't know and didn't see my personal page, I T-boned my head today, which is why I have a hat on. Oh my gosh, it hurts so bad. But anyway, she told me to use it on that. So I'm going to do that this afternoon before I get my son. But you guys look into this. It's really fascinating. The science behind it and the work that you put into this is, I just want to, thank you again. And I know Freddie's probably reached out to you, but he is just like a raving fan of yours as well. Yeah. So, so we're really pleased that we have you to refer to.
Raving fan, yes.
Yeah, seriously, and me too. So we're seeing comments in the chat. Yes, you're welcome, everybody. And Leanne, I have to say, so tell me a little bit more before we wrap up about the training. Can they find the training, the Flow State training on your website as well, or where is that?
Yes, when I launched the Rejuvenators at the very end of 2016, and I haven't gone back. I haven't done a training. I've had so many people that have been emailing me, especially I've been getting flooded with them lately. When are you doing your next Creative Flow training program? We need to do this. And so it's kind of like, it's coming back. It will be coming back. I love doing the teaching. I don't like doing the administrative stuff. So that's where I need to so I've told people, it's like, if you want to organize a group, I have been doing those. Like when people organize a group, so I don't have to do that. And I know I have a ton of people that are waiting, and it's the administrative stuff. So the things that don't excite me are administrative stuff.
Yeah, me too.
So, like the detail things that I'm not excited about doing. So it's like, make it easy for me and like put a group together or organize a group, and I will be happy to teach it. And the last one I did was completely online. So, but I really like, coming in and working directly with the group, because that energy exchange is so much fun. But I do it online as well, and then I can have people around the world. So if we can. Right
so
now.
If we can organize something for coaches, maybe, the early 2019, maybe January, February, something like that. Maybe you and I can communicate back and forth, and I can get, maybe we can do a waiting list and we can just do a little training program for coaches.
Yes, that would be great. If somebody else is taking care of that detail and administrative stuff, then I love doing the teaching part. I have all the materials. I mean, everything, it's just that little bit of block. Like, so this is one of those things, you have to determine what puts you into flow and what you don't like doing. And the things that I don't like doing now, I just don't do them. So
I'm kind of the same way though. I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm going to hire someone to do that, or I'm going to get someone else to take care of that, so I can stay within my little wheelhouse of happiness.
Yeah, you have to do the things that make you feel good. Of course, when you're starting a business, you kind of have to wear all these different hats. Right. Yeah, I really love doing the teaching part and love helping people, as I'm sure you've gleaned. But yeah, the administrative stuff is the less exciting.
Okay. Well, I'll get with my people and we'll see what we can do about putting a training together. I'll get the interest going from all the groups, and just want to thank you for sharing your expertise and this valuable information, because I think and I love how we seem to align with so much of our beliefs are the same when we talk about this kind of thing. So a lot of what you said today are things that really put an exclamation point and drive home what I think coaches should be doing. And that's to be their authentic selves, listen to their instincts, work from their passion, stop listening to everybody else around you and taking classes that don't mean anything to you. Tap into the inside of you, and you'll reach that flow state much faster, right?
Yes, exactly. And the whole thing about this accumulating certificates and, degrees and all of this stuff, it's like, you don't need all those pieces of paper. You don't need all those certifications. You just need to do the stuff that you are excited about learning. You can find books. You will find the teachers that help you. You'll find the books that will help you, and study those. You don't need to go and, oh, now I have to learn this boring part that I'm not excited about. No, you don't. Don't worry about having pieces of paper and letters after your name. That's kind of a big thing in the States. People want lots and lots of letters, but it's like, but you're not excited about any of those things. So just be excited. And you don't need all the letters. People will listen to you if you have something valuable to say and you're speaking from your own experience. You don't 100%. Need to regurgitate what everybody else is doing.
That's right. Thank you for that. Thank you for saying that. I've been preaching that for years now. So excellent. Yeah. Thank you so much, Leanne. Everyone, thank you for joining us today. And yes, watch for the replay. Of course, we'll include her links and information in there. And you can always go back and watch this again. And we'll have you back. And hopefully early 2019, we'll do a training. And I just want to say
that would be great. I would love that.
So much.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of the day, everyone. Bye now.